Before we get into these questions, I do want to remind you that any questions that we don't get to tonight, I will be taking on my blog in the days to come. So by all means, send them in, even if we can't get to all of them live. So, Nick, have you found some questions that I can begin dealing with here?
Yes, sir, Joe. And the first one I think you're going to like. It's pretty easy. We've had a couple requests to have you repeat that blog address nice and slow where people will know where to get those resources that you've been mentioning.
Okay, very good. My blog is www.catechistjourney.com. And so catechist is plural, of course, no apostrophe. So www.catechistjourney.com. And also, I've mentioned and will mention the Loyola Press website, where there's going to be many other Advent resources. You can get to www.loyolapress.com. Okay, Nick, who else?
All right, our next question is going to come from Mary Beth, and she asks, what kind of activities work for 7th graders in introducing them to the concept of Advent?
Okay, Mary Beth, thank you for that question, and this gives me an opportunity to let you know exactly how we're going to structure this evening. For each of the 4 Sundays of Advent, after we talk a little bit about the scripture reading and draw out a theme from that scripture reading, I'm going to share with you an activity that can be used with the older children, let's say middle schoolers and junior high, on up through high school and youth and adult as well, with the adaptations that you would know how to make working with adults. Then I'm going to show a variation of that activity for working with younger children, those of you who are working with primary age children. So hopefully, Mary Beth, I'll be able to answer what works for 7th graders in each of the 4 weeks by presenting the first idea that is for that age group and for those who are a little bit older. All right, Nick, what's next?
All right, Judy has our next question for us. She would like to know, how can we get the families of our CCD students to participate at home and reinforce our Advent lessons in class?
Good question, Judy, and this is, I think, one of our ongoing challenges is that we want to make sure that families feel that they can participate in their child's faith formation and to give them those opportunities. I think that some of the traditions that I have talked about before mentioning, and you'll be able to find resources on the Loyola Press website, things like Advent wreaths and Jesse trees and Advent calendars. These are all great activities for working at home. And in many ways, Advent is kind of a feast of the domestic church. You know, I think it really is an opportunity for us to celebrate at home. The Advent wreath is really a decoration for the home. We certainly have one in our church as well. But I think that we should provide as many opportunities as possible for our families to bring the Advent season into their homes and to celebrate it with their children, knowing that this is a wonderful way to prepare for the coming of Christ in the Christmas season.
Yeah, we've had a whole bunch of great questions. We would like to remind everyone, if we don't get to your question live tonight, Joe will be answering these questions on his blog at www.catechistjourney.com. Our first question for this segment comes to us from Mary. Mary would like to know, how can you teach the identity of Jesus in the context of Advent?
That is a wonderful question, Mary. There are so many opportunities to talk about Jesus' identity. For one, it would be to talk about all of the names and titles that we have for Jesus. You know, when a child is born, choosing a name is so important. So it's great to talk about what the name Emmanuel means, that God is with us. Or the name Jesus, which means God saves. We can also take a look in Isaiah and find many of the titles that are given to the Messiah that we then apply to Jesus. We can also look at the O antiphons. The O antiphons are wonderful prayers from the divine office that are prayed from December 17th through December 24th, and they basically make up the titles that we sing in the song, O Come, Emmanuel. And one other idea that I'd like to suggest is taking a look at the genealogy of Jesus, both either in Luke's Gospel, which would be good for this year, or Matthew's Gospel, because a genealogy gives identity. And I think that's a wonderful way to help the people we're teaching to see how Jesus fits into the story of salvation history. Great question. What else, Nick?
All right, our next question is coming to us all the way from Singapore, and the question is from Martina, and she says, in Singapore, catechism classes stop the second week of November every year, which is way before Advent starts. How do I effectively prepare the kids? And I know she says here she teaches the lower primary levels, but I'm sure there are other people who are dealing with this same situation who teach older students as well.
Okay, well, thank you, Martina, and good morning to you in Singapore. It's wonderful to have you with us. It's a very unusual situation, at least for us here in the States, to think of classes ending in the middle of November before Advent begins. You know, we face that in certain ways. I think when we get to the Pentecost celebration, many of our religious education classes end before we ever get to celebrate Pentecost with our young people. So I think often what we need to do is we have to look at our calendars and find ways of preparing our young people to celebrate some of the feasts and seasons of the church year well in advance of what they're going to be able to do in our religious education program. But then certainly, as a parish, it would be great if we could put our heads together and find ways that we can bring people together around intergenerational events. Loyola Press has an Advent intergenerational event on the website that I encourage you to find. It's a great way to pull the whole parish together for a one-day activity so that we can celebrate a season that perhaps we're not going to have that much time to teach.
All right, Joe, we have one question. It's from Caroline. She says, Joe, I'm wondering, in this wonderful media age, what videos on YouTube you recommend for the Advent season to use, especially with adults. Now, I'm guessing that you don't know what videos right off the top of your head you might use, but could you maybe give us a brief process that you use to evaluate videos that you might find on YouTube that would be enriching for a class?
Excellent. That is a good question, Caroline, and we certainly want to use these, take advantage of media. Two things I'd recommend. Talk to your director of religious education, if you're a catechist, to find out what your DRE or CRE may already have on their shelf, or what they can help point you to on the internet at YouTube. The other thing I recommend that you do is to get in touch with your diocesan media center, whether you're a catechist or if you're a DRE. Your diocesan media center will have recommendations on good videos that can be shown during Advent. And if your diocese doesn't have a media center, get in touch with a major archdiocese, Chicago and Los Angeles, New York and Boston, Atlanta. Most major archdioceses have a media center that will help you find good media resources. And, of course, don't forget the Daughters of St. Paul. They have great materials, videos that we can be using during the Advent season as well. There's all kind of great resources we can look at.